Yeah, we'll move on to the weekend's hurling action, and plenty of big talking points in the weekend's hurling games. And look, we'll start with the big one, really. Clare 321, Cork 224. I mean, an incredible game, really. Cork coming flying out of traps. Kind of cutting Clare wide open, left, right, and centre, running straight through the middle of them. Brian Hayes having a phenomenal game. Alan Connolly as well, like that point he scored over his shoulder was nothing short of remarkable. And Cork were, putting the All-Ireland champions to the sword in their own backyard. It was kind of incredible to watch. And 11, 12 points up, I think, maybe at half time. They were absolutely cruising. And you were thinking this could be really ugly for Clare if they don't get their act together. But then the second half comes and they absolutely blow Cork out of water themselves. Then they come roaring back. Obviously, you have the Shane Barrett red card as well. Late goal from Peter Duggan. Obviously, the 2 goals at the start of the second half as well. And Clare come rallying back, and in the end, it ends in a draw. But an incredible game. What were your thoughts?
Well, it's one that certainly got away, Aaron. I'll put it that way. It's so frustrating because the first half was so perfect in it. It was an excellent performance from a Cork point of view. It was an excellent showing with Brian Hayes getting 2 goals. Obviously, Hoggy was well on form as well. Darragh Fitzgibbon. It all seemed to click in the first half. Tim O'Mahony was dominating midfield, and Clare just weren't getting enough in the forward line. I think they had 4 points from play in the first half as well, and they just weren't at kind of the race of it. But then when the second half hit, a few combining factors. I would say number one, it was maybe Clare hit Cork hard in terms of quality, first of all, in terms of the goals from Ian McCarthy, first of all, and then David Reedy goal. Obviously, they're avoidable from a Cork point of view. Kieran Joyce has been excellent over the last few years, but soloing the ball and then losing it, and then Clare go down the other end and get the goal through Ian McCarthy. It's just, it was very poor from a Cork point of view, the way we conceded that goal. And then the second goal for David Reedy, it's a long ball into the area. Cork should be dealing with that a lot better. But yeah, Clare get the goal at the end. And then the sending off for Shane Barrett. Look, just again, 2 sides of the coin here, Aaron. First of all, I will say, look, it's a red card. You can't elbow a guy in the jaw. Look, it's excessive force. It is a red card. I know Shane would probably reflects on the errors of his ways in the dressing room afterward. But at the same time, David Reedy and the rest of the Clare team, in my honest opinion, goaded the likes of Shane Barrett, the likes of Brian Hayes, the likes of Alan Connolly into these challenges in the second half. That's my honest view on it. And Brian Lohan might have said to these lads in the dressing room, lads, if we annoy Cork here, we could get a guy sent off and we have a chance of coming back into this game. I honestly think that's what Clare's kind of tactic was in the second half, obviously with the brilliant comeback and they bring the blood and thunder and things like that. But you have to take that into consideration as well. Yes, it's within the rule book, you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to go at players and things like that. But that's what Clare were doing. And I've seen a lot of Clare fans say on social media, Cork bottled it and Cork aren't good enough to win the All-Ireland and things like that. And the second half showed they aren't good enough to win the All-Ireland, and Clare showed why they're All-Ireland champions. There was that element as well, and you have to take that into consideration as well. The goal from Peter Duggan, outstanding finish, but again, Cork should be doing a lot better. Maybe Patrick Collins was a bit swayed, and I don't know what he was doing on his line at that particular moment. Then Clare come back into the game properly with the Tony Kelly point, and then the equalising point later on. And when Aaron Shanahan won that free, which David really popped over, thought that was it. We're going to lose in this here. And then obviously Decky Dawson gets the point to level it in the end, which, to be honest, only was a fair result in the end to get. And a lot of Clare fans, again, I'd say it's on social media, were saying it was over the time limit, over the 4-minute time limit. But let's not forget, Michael Duignan said in commentary, it should have been about 6 or 7 minutes of extra time. So maybe the ref was thinking that all right, and he played a little bit of extra minutes in terms of to level that playing field a small bit. But look, a draw, both sides will probably be disappointed over. Clare for their first half performance, Cork for their second half performance. It is a point on the board. Thankfully, for their point of views, that Limerick can take both through the other game later on that day. But in terms of the game itself, I think both sides would be very, very disappointed in terms of the way they drew that game. Clare for the first half display and Cork for the second.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian says here, Munster hurling never disappoints. What an incredible, amazing weekend of hurling. And Cork forwards were on fire in the first half, and second half Clare went direct and caused Cork problems. Yeah, like it is interesting. Like I think for Cork, it's definitely a learning curve in more ways than one. Like I mean, to be so comfortable at halftime and then obviously be caught back. And I do understand what you're saying as well in terms of Cork were probably goaded into making some of them bad challenges and everything else. I think for Cork though as well, like there is still a good bit of inexperience maybe in the team, and I think that's something that they will have to learn a bit more from in terms of not falling for that kind of thing. And maybe Clare and Limerick have been a bit more like around the block, and they're probably a bit more used to that kind of thing now. So for Cork, it definitely is a learning curve in regards to that, I think. But yeah, like I think, like overall, it's like it's not the end of the world really for Cork at the same time. Look, I think as well, it is also good to have that lesson in terms of being so comfortable and then letting a lead slip. You know, if Cork had just ran and won this game by 18, 19, 20 points and then had something like this happen, maybe potentially, I don't know what's after happening there, but yeah, maybe if they had something like that happen a little bit later in the season, you know, Cork could have collapsed and maybe they could have went out of the All-Ireland a little bit prematurely. So, yeah, like there is still positives to take from that as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Like if this happens in a Munster final or an All-Ireland semi-final, then there's no coming back from it. And I do think, yeah, it is a lesson learned, and the players need to calm themselves in those sorts of situations as well, and add a bit of bite as well. And I see what your point is on Clare and Limerick. Every kind of niggle stuff off the ball, they would get going into, like the way that Adam Hogan was goading Hoggy in the league, and Adam Hogan was doing the same thing yesterday as well. A few of the Clare backs were at it as well, a few of the Clare forwards, even David Reedy for the Shane Barrett sending off. It was clear what they were doing. Like it was to rile the Cork players up, and our players kind of need to cop onto that strategy as well. If we are to get up to the top level of hurling, it's a nasty side of the game, obviously. Limerick are experts at it. Clare are probably the second in command of it. Cork need to get up there as well if they are to contend for All Irelands. And I see your point there. If this happened later on in the championship, we might not be coming back from it. But it's the first game in Munster. Cork have a home game to rectify that against Tipperary next week. They could easily have 3 points on the board by this time next week, which would be a positive. And there's a lesson learned, obviously. And obviously, if number one, to calm themselves, and number two, they need to build kind of a backbone and a kind of, excuse my French here, a bit of shithousery. Cork need to do that in the next few weeks to compete with the likes of Clare, to compete with the likes of Limerick, and ultimately get the Liam McCarthy at the end of the summer, which will be Pat Ryan's aim, I'd imagine. So Cork need to start kind of doing that. They need to learn a bit about the dark arts, because that's what Clare and Limerick are clearly doing. And I do think that's something that Cork need to install into their DNA in the next few weeks. Make them hard to beat. Have a bit of, Dermot O'Sullivan about you. Have a bit of Donald Cusack, Sean O'Halpine. You need those kind of mentality-based players to get inside the opposition heads and know you're in a battle with them. That's what Cork need to do in the next few weeks to improve as a team. Hopefully this is a lesson to them, and hopefully they will kind of harder those kind of skill sets in the next few weeks. But as I said previously, Aaron, it's not good in probably the ethos of Gaelic games to instill that kind of elements of the game inside them, but it's something they have to do in the next few weeks to get an All-Ireland at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Sean says here, great comeback from Clare, but I think they will be knocked out on Munster. They were fortunate with the red card, and their forward line looked toothless in the first half. Brian says both teams will take a lot of positives, and Tim says here, hearing this talk from Cork lads, get over it. Nobody's going to stand back unless you produce lovely hurling. And he also says Clare and Limerick do it to Cork because you're easily roiled. What do you make of that?
Maybe so, but Clare and Limerick have to. A lot of people have been going. This is my kind of annoyance, really, on social media and things like that. A lot of people will notice the way Limerick do it, and they'd jump on the train to criticise Limerick for this sort of thing. The Seamus Flanagan incident with Niall O'Leary, some of the incidents last year with Limerick, and some of the incidents with Garrett Hagerty and Kyle Hayes and all them players. And a lot of people criticise Limerick over that. My problem on social media, not enough do it for Clare either. And it needs to be taken seriously. Clare do it the exact same as Limerick. And I do agree with that comment as well. Cork are easily roiled, and I think Pat Ryan they have all the skill sets in terms of building a decent defence and building a lethal attack and doing well in midfield as well. The next thing now is to build a bit of backbone. And I agree with the comments completely. I think Cork are easily roiled in some games. Tipperary didn't do it in the league final enough because Tipperary, again, have young players and they're new to this sort of high level of hurling game with the likes of Darren McCarthy and Dylan Walsh and all them young players for Tipperary. They're excellent hurlers, but they aren't experienced as of yet. So that was kind of a different challenge for Cork. Then when you're going to the Lions Den in Ennis, you have to build a backbone. And I do think these Cork players need to do that. Obviously, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'm like a broken record. It's not good to have this kind of game plan and the ethos of Gaelic games, but it's something Clare and Limerick are developing, and Cork need to do it as well to compete for Liam McCarthy later on in the summer. I do agree with the comments, but my annoyance really is Clare aren't pulled back for those sorts of instances the way Limerick are or any other team are.
Yeah. Brian says Cork are a development team and been extremely up to now. This will bring on an awful lot of learnings. And John says Clare won't be far off All-Ireland again with Shane O'Donnell back. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Clare were hugely written off coming into this game. A lot of people saying maybe they wouldn't get out of Munster. Even some people even still saying that in the comments. They obviously didn't have Shane O'Donnell. They still had a lot of other players there, and Aidan McCarthy, Tony Kelly, who, let's not forget, was unfit for the majority of the Munster Championship last year. And it was actually in the later part where he sort of came back and produced his best form. So does this prove that Clare are certainly not going to go away? Obviously, Munster is extremely competitive. We'll get on to Limerick and Tip in a moment, but it certainly doesn't feel like Clare are going to go away and maybe lie down like a lot of people thought they were going to.
No, it doesn't at all. And even the impact off the Clare bench was very impressive yesterday. The likes of Ian Galvin coming on, Aaron Shanahan, really caused a lot of problems for Cork. And Peter Duggan obviously really did in the second half. I think what was worrying from a Clare point of view was their first half performance and how flat they were. Obviously, Brian Lohan and his team need to learn from that, and pretty quick as well. Like, they go into, well, I would say if I said the Lions Den was Ennis, they're going to another Lions Den next week in Walsh Park against Waterford, and Waterford will not let Clare off easy. And what I will say about say what you want about the Waterford team and things like that, and they struggle in Munster and they were Division 1B this year. Waterford are a team that will get stuck into Clare in Walsh Park in particular, and if the crowd gets behind the Daisha in Walsh Park, especially with the tight ground that it is, Clare could be in trouble. So I do think Clare need to improve in their first half performance next week against Waterford, because you see what Waterford did to Cork last year at Walsh Park. They made it difficult for them. I do think they'll make it difficult for Clare next week. I don't think it's a slam dunk for Clare to win next week. I do think Waterford will really, really challenge them. In positives for Clare, I do think Tony Kelly in this game in particular, he was quiet in some aspects of the game, but in yesterday's game he had 5 shots, 100% shot accuracy. He converted every shot that he took, which is a positive. David Reedy 1-2, converted every shot that he took. Aidan McCarthy did well enough on the frees as well, 1-7 overall, 1-1 for play. They had 4 different free takers, Clare, which was quite interesting, in Reedy, Rogers, Kelly, and Aidan McCarthy, which they're spreading it around a bit, which is kind of a positive, I guess. David Reedy and Tony Kelly took all their free opportunities, which was a positive for them as well. Peter Duggan 1-1 overall, 50% shot accuracy, which was great, to be honest, but you could see the goal danger that he does have. David Fitzgerald didn't have his best game yesterday, and I think Michael Duyden did mention in the co-commentary as well. He did mention that Clare were a bit rusty in the first half, and that was to be expected because Clare weren't at their full pelt at the league and they didn't have their best players available. But then when the second half rolled around, when they started to get in the groove, you could see what good side they are in terms of hurling ability. So I do think Clare, they're not gone as of yet. But that Waterford game next week is not a slam dunk for Clare. I do think it's going to be difficult to get out of Walsh Park with a win. Should be interesting next week.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the thing about Munster. Like it does feel absolutely wide open between all five of them. And Tipperary Limerick was no different as well. 223 apiece is how it finished in the end. Tipperary's way for a win over Limerick in the championship still goes on, but by God, they came very, very close here. And Limerick, to be fair, showed the same kind of resilience that you would expect to see with Limerick, where when it looked like they were going to lose the game, they came rallying back and nearly almost won it. But cracking game between these two. Yeah,
really good game, really enjoyable, and there was a bit of bite obviously to this game as well as the Cork Clare game at the start of this as well. There was a few brawls happening. Tipperary really made it tough for Limerick at some stages in the game, which is a positive from a Tip point of view. They, unlike Cork, obviously, we mentioned before, Tip are building a backbone. The likes of Owen Connolly, Brian O'Mara, they were getting stuck into Limerick from the very off in this one, and that is a positive for Tip moving forward. And not just that, not just them, their abilities to deal with the aggression in Limerick. Their shooting accuracy was superb yesterday, Tip. I think it was 78%. I think they converted 25 shots out of 32, which was absolutely superb. 214 from play as well. Darren McCarthy in his first championship game, in his championship senior debut. What a talent he is. And a lot of people were saying, is Darren McCarthy overrated in the league? Doesn't score much from play. Was quite enough against Cork. Shut up the doubters yesterday. Absolutely superb performance from the young lad. And he has a future, no doubt about it, in the Tipperary jersey. And the likes of Jake Morris, 100% shot, or not 100%, sorry, 80% shot accuracy for Jake Morris. John McGrath took his 2 goals absolutely brilliantly and showed that he's still a goal threat in this Tipperary team. Owen Connolly, in terms of long-range pucking, that was superb in the first half. That was an exhibition. And he showed his defensive abilities and his long free abilities in this game, all molded into one. Very good display from him. Brian O'Mara, excellent. Jason Ford chipped in with a score as well. Craig Morgan, Alan Tynan. Like, they were very, very good all over the pitch, Tipperary. Even Noel McGrath coming onto the pitch and getting a score as well. And he's now, I think, along with Brendan Cummins, the record championship appearance holder for Tipperary. And congratulations to Noel for that. But then again, two sides to every story. I wouldn't say a brilliant performance for Limerick, but in terms of getting back to this game, when it looked at some stages that it was going away from them, you have to give them a lot of credit for coming back into this game. And it was the young guns. Shane O'Brien with 1-4, Adam English with 1-2, me as well. The Adam English goal, cheeky man. Like, that's like you rarely see that in hurling, but when you see it, in a way, I know a lot of people are probably shooting for Tip because they were kind of the underdogs in the game, but those sorts of goals kind of put a smile in your face. I don't know, is that the same for you, Aaron? It's just, obviously the goalkeeper, Barry Hogan, wouldn't like that at all, but look, it's the name of the game. Absolutely superb from Adam English. Shane O'Brien was a colossal in full forward as well. Coyne Hayes, a good performance. Tom Morrissey and Galway Hagerty in the wing forward positions coming back in the team did very, very well. Barry Nash even came up and got a point. Aaron Gillan actually had 100% shot accuracy as well yesterday. So you had Aaron Gillan and Tony Kenny both having 100% shot accuracy. Jake Morris with 80%. This is where it's at, Aaron. This is Munster Championship hurling. That is superb shooting accuracies from all those players involved, and they deserve a lot of credit in terms of the opening game of Munster. When a lot of teams might be a bit rusty, they might be taking a bit of time to get molded into the Munster Championship for this season. But them players to get shooting accuracies like that, superb. And Limerick even, I know Tipperary at 78% shot accuracy overall. Limerick at 67%, 25 shots taken out of a possible 37. Very good from them. And I know Nicky Quaid at some stages looked a bit, I would say, well, obviously he looked unfit because, like, you're coming back from an ACL after 5 months. That's a minor miracle. Well, I wouldn't say minor miracle, a major miracle in its own right. But for Limerick to retain 25 puckouts out of a possible 32, like, you could see the influence that Nicky Quaid has on the team when he is back in there. So there's a few positives for Limerick, probably more positives from the Tipperary point of view, showing that they can compete at this level, and they are not going to be easy meat for Cork next week, even in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So I think both sides will be coming out of this with a lot of positives moving forward. And for Limerick in particular, I think there's more to come from this team. I think there's still like a few bits where John Coyley would have been disappointed with, but we all know about this Limerick team. They grow into the championship as it goes on, and this year will be no different, in my opinion.
Yeah, Sean says if Tip can stay consistent, they will get out of Munster. They have great gems and Darren McCarthy, John McGrath, and Jake Morris. Shane O'Brien really came on in this game, and with Peter Casey off the bench. The bench is deadly. This was a magnificent Tip performance against Limerick. You have to admire the enthusiasm, energy, and hunger. And yeah, like just on that, like it feels like it's the most competitive the Munster Championship has ever been. Like you could really make a case for any team to progress, and you can make a case really for any team maybe to get to a final as well, to get to a Munster final. Like if you have to call it here now in terms of the three teams that would progress, who would you be edging towards? Because it's such a difficult question to answer, isn't it?
Really, really is, yeah. I think Cork and Limerick probably will make it out. And then third place will be between Clare and Tipperary. And I think the difference will be Clare and Tip's game is on in Ennis. So I think that will edge it to Clare. I think Clare will get third place, but Tip, they're not going away at all. And worth noting as well, don't forget, Waterford still have to play next week as well. We'll see what they can offer. So it's a tough one to predict.
Yeah, like if Waterford get a result against Clare, that just throws it completely wide open. Then all of a sudden you'd be thinking, you wouldn't be sure what way it's going to go, to be honest with you. But I probably would agree with you as well. I think Clare probably as well, in like you saw them against Cork being able to turn that around. Like in the big moments, they've been there and done it more so than this Tip side. I know Tip do have All-Ireland winners in their team as well, but they probably do have more younger players in there now than some of the older guards. So yeah, I probably will go with Clare to progress there as well. Moving across to Leinster, Kilkenny 324, Galway 21 points. Very comfortable result for Kilkenny. Very flat game as well. Galway were very, very poor, weren't in the game at all. And yeah, it was just comfortable for Kilkenny. And even at that as well, I felt like Kilkenny didn't really get out of third gear as well. They felt very comfortable in the game.
Just in terms of the game overall, like the attendance for this game in Nolan Park was worrying for the Leinster Championship. And what I will say in terms of the game and in terms of the coverage and in terms of, I would say, the game overall, it didn't feel like a championship game at all. And I think that's a worry for the Leinster Championship moving forward. First on Galway, geez, I know this is one year where I genuinely don't know where this Galway team are at. In the league, they looked terrible against Tipperary first day out, but then they turned around with a brilliant performance against Clare, brilliant performance against Kilkenny, and they seem to be getting a bit of momentum. Then against Cork, they look pretty bad. In Páirc Uí Chaoimh, their defence looked well open. And in this game, the game was, to be honest, like at half time, it was almost like Kilkenny were so comfortable in this. And it was almost like I think Gary King's team were kind of questioning, where's the challenge going to come in Leinster? If it's not going to come from Galway, who's it going to come from? I do genuinely think Dublin, and we'll look at Dublin and Offaly in just a sec, but I think those two counties are well able to put it up to Kilkenny. And that is a worry for Galway, because there is a serious kind of situation here where they won't actually get out of Leinster for a second year in a row, which I think that will be detrimental to Galway. To Micheál Donoghue's come in as a manager as well. I know he would have considered this job as a lot of work coming in, because like Galway looked well off it last year. Well off it. And they don't seem to be improving fourfold at all this year, which is negative for Galway. And it is really, really worrying. Like even when you look at the likes of Conor Whelan scoring just a point in this one, that's one of your key players. It just looked very, very flat for a Galway point of view. I think one positive you could take, and maybe I'm nitpicking at straws here, Carl Mannion scoring 10 points, and maybe he could be the leader in this Galway attack, but other than that, there wasn't much. As for Kilkenny, look, they could play what's in front, only play what's in front of them. Owen Cody scoring 1-5, Martin Jones scoring 1-2 after being top scorer from play in Division 1A. That's positive for his form. Fiona McKessie getting his first championship start for Kilkenny with 4 points as well. Jordan Malloy with 3, Adrian Mullen getting the goal before he got injured as well. I think there might be a negative for Kilkenny in that kind of light as well with the injuries. Adrian Mullen going off injured. A few players injured. Obviously, TJ being injured before the game as well. That's going to be negative for Kilkenny moving forward. And, well, maybe not, because maybe Leinster won't be as competitive as we all believe. And Kilkenny will play Antrim next week, which should be a win for Kilkenny, even if they put out maybe a second string team or whatever. But look, Kilkenny can play what's in front of them. it's a good win. They'll brush it under the carpet. They won't see it as a brilliant win or whatsoever. I think the main story in this are two ones. Number one, where's the Leinster Championship at with the attendance and the promotion? And number two, where are this Galway team going to end in the All-Ireland series as soon as the Leinster Championship ends?
Yeah, well, I seen like All Irish Sport, they posted earlier that 18,411 people across all three games. That was the combined attendance for the Leinster Championship games this weekend. So, yeah, there just seems to be very little buy-in. I think, yeah, like it's probably just one of them things. Like Munster is obviously where it's at, and you've the highest standards there. It doesn't feel like that in Leinster. And there seems to be a lot of, bigger gaps between a lot of the teams as well. And like last year, Leinster was actually fairly entertaining as well. Like, I mean, there was a lot of teams that were in the running for a Leinster final. It wasn't like Kilkenny and Galway or anything like that, ran away with it to a Leinster final. There was a lot of teams kind of in the mix going into the final couple of games. But yeah, the buy-in just doesn't really seem to be there. And whether that's because of, extra games, meaning extra money, and maybe fans trying to save themselves for Crow Park and everything else, it's kind of hard to know really why there has been so little interest. But as you said, yeah, like Kilkenny were absolutely brilliant, but Galway just so flat, and it looks like they haven't evolved at all under Micheál Donoghue. Like, again, just floating aimless long balls into a two-man full forward line. Like, it's just, they don't look like they've changed at all since Henry Shefflin has been there, and they don't look like they've progressed at all. And it is year one for new management, so you can excuse it a little bit. But as you said, like and this will be a second year in a row where they haven't got Iowa Leinster. But let's not forget, was it 2019 as well where they didn't get Iowa Leinster as well? So like it's like this is becoming a common occurrence for Galway in the round robin.
Yeah, and you look at Kilkenny's kind of consistency in the Leinster Championship and you compare that to Galway's, even not just in the top three, leave that for a sec. Kilkenny are now on for, I think, 6 in a row in Leinster. And you look at their consistency in the Leinster Championship this particular moment in time, and then you look at Galway's. Galway haven't won a Leinster Championship since 2018. As mad as that is, it's true. And I think you mentioned, you were banging the money there, Aaron. I think as well for Galway, they look way too predictable. You knew what they were going to do. As soon as the ball was thrown in, you knew what they were going to do. Two-man full forward line. Try and get the best out of Conor Whelan, try and get the best of Colin Mannion, and hope for the best. And Galway, for a high-level team that Galway are supposed to be, you cannot have those plan A's and don't think of a plan B afterwards. You cannot do that in this hurling championship. And as you said there, the Leinster Championships, yes, the attendance isn't there, but it's getting more competitive in those sort of regions, not just leave Kilkenny for a sec. You have Dublin, you have Offaly, you have Wexford. All those three sides are capable of beating Galway on their day. Like Offaly have Galway next week. I would not be shocked if Offaly beat Galway next week.
Yeah.
At this moment in time, and it is worrying for Micheál Donoghue. If he loses that game, it's going to be an awful lot of pressure on him as Galway manager.
Yeah, Tim says here, resurgence. Offaly and Wexford or Dublin potentially getting decent teams together. It could mean a bit of trouble for Galway if they don't wake up a bit. Yeah, crazy stuff there. But it'll be interesting to see how what happens as the Leinster Championship goes on. Looking at some other games then in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship, we did have a big result in the end for Dublin, who beat Offaly 125 to 219. A game that really could have went the way of Offaly. Like, I wasn't at the game, and you were kind of keeping an eye on the score and everything else, and it was looking like Offaly could potentially go on and win the game. But a late goal from Ronan Hayes, a couple of late points as well towards the end. Dublin just about getting out of jail there.
Yeah, and to be fair, I do think that's a good win for Dublin to get, considering what Offaly did to them in Division 1B and hitting them with a last-minute point in Crow Park. That's a good win to get. Look, Offaly are not going to be slouches. I've said this previously, they are a developing team. You could see the potential in Offaly at this present moment in time. And yeah, that was a good showing from them. The likes of, obviously, Brian Doyle getting 8 points in this one, Oisin Kelly getting 1-1, Killian Sampson getting 1-1. They seem to be going along very, very nicely. Obviously, Ronan Hayes getting the goal to kind of derail that momentum a small bit. But yeah, to be honest, like Dublin didn't look too comfortable in this game up until obviously the last point from John Henderson. They looked very, very ropey at times. So it was a good result to get for them in part of the part and move on to the Wexford game next week with a lot of confidence. I'd imagine Brian Hayes getting 3 points as well, Donald Burke getting 4 points, Sean Curry, great team on the scoreboard with 9 points after his club exploits for the Fianna as well. So, yeah, good win overall for Dublin. I don't think it's disaster stations considering Offaly you have to take into account our developing team, and they are a good team, and they will make it difficult for anybody in Leinster at the moment. So I think for Dublin and for Nino Calican, it was just about getting over the line for them. And they got over the line. Fair play to them for that. But I think Offaly, I've said this before and I'll say it again, Offaly will make it difficult for any team that they come across in Leinster.
Yeah, and Liam White says here, Saturday is essentially Galway's most important game of the year. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if Offaly win that, I think that's it done for Galway. I don't think they're getting out of Leinster. So they have to win that game, in my opinion. Otherwise, I think it's it'll be a long, long way back to turn it around from there. But speaking of Wexford, they beat Antrim 224 to 19 points. They did have a man sent off early on, and that threatened to make the game a little bit. I think Jack O'Connor was sent off, threatened to make the game a little bit more vulnerable from a Wexford perspective. But they came through it in the end, and they did avenge the defeat from last year. And in fairness to Antrim, they did give this a good go as well, and maybe did make the game a little bit closer than maybe some people had anticipated.
Yeah, you have to give a lot of credit to Antrim for obviously, as Liam said in your podcast last week, they don't travel well at all, and they kind of been that miss in the first half with their performance, obviously, albeit with the Jack O'Connor sending off, and that kind of derailed Wexford a small bit, but a very good performance from Lee Shin in particular, 16 points. When does he ever stop scoring for Wexford? That's an incredible tally. You have to give credit to the likes of Conor Hearn and Rory O'Connor with 3 points each as well. Keane Burning, Kevin Foley getting on the goal scoring sheet for Wexford. But then again, Antrim did miss a penalty in the first half. I've seen the highlights of the Sunday game. Gerard Walsh missed the penalty in the first half, but for Gerard Walsh to even play this game, as Neil McMahon has mentioned on Sunday game as well, was an achievement in itself because he did bury his sister last week, and obviously condolences to the Walsh family and all involved there. But for him to come out on the pitch in the Leinster Championship game in high stakes like that is a testament to the man Gerard Walsh is and the hurler he is. So obviously condolences again to his family. But a good win for Wexford overall. They move into the Dublin game now with a win under their belt. And Lee Shin's back now, so I think that's a positive for Wexford moving into the Dublin game next week. But yeah, he started his campaign as good as he started the last campaign, and that's not good for Dublin going into next week. I know Dublin are performing well themselves to a certain extent, but Lee Chin, the way he's performing at the moment, he'll be a serious operator for Dublin to kind of get a leash on. Yeah,
we've a great record against Wexford over the last couple of years as well. But as you said, it will be very, very difficult to get anything there next week. But we'll wait and see what happens. Just running through some games in the John McDonagh. So Laois beat Westmeath 325 to 122. Carlow beat down 623 to 20 points, and big win for Kerry versus Kildare 117 to 19 points. So looking at it there, Carlow are heavy favourites, and after a big win against a very good downside as well, it's very hard to look past them winning the Joe McDonagh there.
Yeah, considering their form in the league at Division 1B, a crazy enough stat actually. Out of the finalists, Waterford and Offaly, Carlow didn't lose to either. They drew against Offaly and they beat Waterford as well. So they have shown this season in League Championship what a serious team they are. Martin Kavanagh got 6 points in this one. Obviously, Chris Nolan was the top scorer for play in Division 1B overall this year. And he carried on that form with a hat-trick in this one with 3-1. So very good performance from him. Obviously, you have to look at Paddy Boland with 1-1, Ted Joyce with a goal, James Doyle in midfield. I'm very impressed with him. In recent weeks in the League Championship, he got 1-3 as well. So very good win for Carlow, obviously. For Down, it's kind of maybe a reality check in a small bit to some extent. They did well to get promoted from Division 2 with magnificent achievement for Rowan Sheehan's men at the beat Kildare in that final. They did with skill and endeavour, obviously, and a very good display from them. They do have some good players like Tom McGrattan and Pierce Up Crickard, so I'm sure Down will be back later on the Joe McDonagh Cup. Unfortunately for them, this game was kind of a rude awakening in some ways, and it will be difficult to kind of recover for that in next week's round of fixtures. As for Laois and Westmeath, good win for Laois over their rivals. Tomas Keys getting 1-8 in this, with Ben Conroy really impressed with 2-2 for Laois as well. But special mention to Killian Doyle for Westmeath. Westmeath scored 122, Killian got 111. So it does show that Westmeath have some serious scores. David Williams, I don't know, is he going to come back into the team as well? And Kieran Doyle there as well. So Westmeath do have serious players, but it's just about kind of getting a win on the board from their point of view and getting a bit of confidence rolling. They did beat Carlow, funnily enough, in the last round of Division 1B. So maybe confidence is there. It was just a bad day at the office, but well done to Laois. And as for Kerry, what a win for them in Newbridge, 117 to 19 points over Kildare. A result that I wouldn't probably have expected, considering Kerry were way down the table in Division 2. They were near the relegation zone, then they were promotion places. And you had the likes of Fiona McKessie going to Kilkenny, and the likes of Mikey Boyle retiring over the last few years. Shane Conway nowhere to be seen as well. But a massive win for them. Podge Boyle getting 1-7 in this one. They do have footballers in this team as well, the likes of Oisin Mansell, Tom Doyle, part of the Dr. Crokes team, obviously, and Luke Crowley, who did well in the Sigerson Cup for Maynooth University. They're all kind of traditional footballers for Kerry. They aren't good enough to make the football team in Kerry, so they're helping out their hurlers, which is a good sign from a Kerry point of view. As for Kildare, that's a terrible defeat to take for them. I'm sure Brian Dowling and his team wanted to win that game, especially at home. But good win for Kerry. Good way to start off the McDonagh Cup in what seemed like a kind of a negative camp to be in, considering their league form, losing to Donegal in Division 2 included. But that's a brilliant win for Kerry. But in all saying that, Aaron, I think it'll be very, very difficult to stop Carlow in this McDonagh Cup campaign.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A big result there for Kerry, and as you said, for Kildare, they might be staring down the barrel of relegation, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Yeah, we'll wrap it up here then. Cheers, anyone who tuned in. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to check out Matthew's channel as well when you get a chance. And until the next one, we will speak to you all later.